Here at Kensington Palace in London, this staircase is lined with the portraits of servants who worked for King George I. In among the courtiers and ladies-in-waiting is one of the most mysterious figures in the history of the royal court. He was known simply as Peter the Wild Boy. In 1725, he was found by local peasants deep in the woods near the German town of Hanover. He was a feral child with a wild appearance who lived off the food of the forest and who couldn't articulate a single word. People were surprised by the wild boy's excessively hairy appearance, the way he scampered on all fours instead of walking upright, and they noticed he had an old wound on his left hand. Some of the fingers were fused together with webbing like a duck's foot. King George I, who'd been born near Hanover, heard about the wild boy and invited him to join the royal household. Perhaps he relished the challenge of transforming Peter from the savage he seemed into the perfect gentleman. And the courtiers were intrigued by him because he didn't understand the rules of human behaviour. They were charmed by his encounters with civilization. And at night, he wouldn't get into a bed. He'd go and curl up in a corner of the room on the floor. Standing next to Peter in the picture is his tutor, Dr. John Arbuthnot, in the hat. Dr. Arbuthnot tried to teach him the alphabet. He got him to mouth the letters.
Oh.
And despite all of his tutor's efforts, Peter never learnt how to speak. For the philosophers, he summed up one of the great questions of the Enlightenment. What does it mean to be a human being? If you have no speech, do you have a soul? Was Peter just an animal? At the time, people assumed that Peter acted the way he did because he was a wild child. They didn't suspect that something else could have been afflicting him. But a new analysis of Peter's portraits by Professor Philip Beales has revealed the possible causes of his behaviour.
What we see in this particular picture is that he has this lustrous mop of hair and this prominent nose as well, with sort of flared nostrils at the end. The artist has captured the lips, which have this Cupid's bow appearance.
And you put all of these clues into your database and you've come out with an answer, haven't you?
I think the most likely is a condition that's recently described called Pitt-Hopkins syndrome. There are many features. The most severe of this is the neurological component. It's severe learning difficulties, developmental difficulties, and the inability to develop speech and interactions that fit with patients that we know have this condition.
Not realising that Peter's behaviour could be due to a medical condition, the courtiers got bored with him and sent him off to live in the country. He was looked after by the family who lived here at Broadway Farm in Hertfordshire. In the country, Peter could be much more himself. A far cry from his life within the royal palaces. And near to his home, here at Berkhamsted School Library, they now have the only remaining artefact left from Peter's life, his collar. Now look at this. You can see where it was locked on around his neck. It looks like a horrible, vicious thing to wear. What do you think of the idea of a human being wearing a collar like a dog?
I don't think that people should wear collars.
But at the same time, it was made with a kind thought, I think, because it's got his name and address on the front.
Whoever will bring him to Mr. Fenn shall be paid for their trouble.
It shows then that he wasn't really an object or a possession, because if he was a slave, say, people wouldn't get paid for the trouble.
I agree with you. I think that the collar does show that they cared about him. Peter lived on into his 70s, and in turn he grew very attached to the farmers who looked after him. So much so that when the last farmer died, Peter really took it to heart. He pined away, and he died here at the farm just a few days later. Often flowers mysteriously appear on Peter's grave. I asked one of the flower ladies at this church if she knew who leaves them, and she gave an answer which moved me. She said, "We don't know who leaves flowers for Peter, but there must be people around here who think that he should be remembered." Peter, who was once ridiculed by the upper classes as a wild and soulless animal, had grown into a gentle and sensitive person. Leading an innocent and simple life, he proved himself to be just as human as the rest of us.